all of my young men out there, I need you, if you're watching this, I need you to listen to me and listen to me closely. All right. Credit card debt is going to keep you broke for your entire life if you do not learn how to avoid it, bro. All right. Now let's talk about it. So, if you watch any of my videos, you probably know I'm always talking about debt, credit cards, student loans, car loans, any form of debt that you can go into as a consumer, right? And I love to emphasize young men when I talk about these types of issues because I myself am a young man, right? And I understand how much financial mismanagement can negatively affect us, right? I think that's why I'm so passionate about this because especially growing up in like the hood, I guess, or whatever, I've seen how like poor money management can affect your entire life and not only your life, but the people around you. So I think it's very important for us as young men, as young people in general, but to all my young dudes watching this, it is important for you to have financial literacy and understand basic principles around money, such as avoiding credit card debt. So today we're going to talk about why I think credit card debt keeps young men broke. All right. I have 5 points here that I'm going to quickly go over. I'm not going to like go on to like a deep rant about this. I'm going to keep this really simple and straightforward. Okay. Try to just make it as basic as I can. Right. So when we think about credit card debt, I'm going to call the trap is the credit card debt. Right. But let me explain why I'm thinking about it as a trap. So pretty much once you fall into the trap of having credit card debt, for anybody, I don't really care who, this is not pertaining to only young men, but it's hard for you to get out of it, right? And why is that? One of the biggest reasons why it's hard for people to get out of credit card debt is because you can go into way more debt than you might have the ability to pay off in such a short amount of time. So let me, again, keep this very simple. Let's say you have a credit card debt or a credit card with a limit of $5,000, right? But if you spend that $5,000 credit limit in like 1 month on some just being purely stupid type of stuff, the chances of you being able to pay that $5,000 off in the same amount of time, 1 month, is probably really low. So you're basically digging a hole for yourself, jumping in, and you're basically forced to climb out. Once you jump, you're going down real fast. You got gravity, but the climb is going to take way longer. And that's basically why I'm thinking about it as a trap. So the number one thing I think, and that's why I put it number one, is to avoid the trap. Like I said, once you jump into the hole, depending on how deep the hole is, you might not ever get out of it. And it's going to be really hard to do so. You know what I mean? So avoiding the trap is the number one thing that I think you should do. I wrote low income plus bills plus debt results in you making minimum payments. Because as it relates to the credit card debt, not only is it really hard for you to escape the hole once you get into it, but a lot of people only make minimum payments and they damn near start digging another hole once they're in the hole by only making minimum payments. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. If you only make the bare minimum, you're not paying enough to cover the amount of interest that is accruing on your account, especially if you have a lot. Like credit cards have high APRs. So you're looking at a credit card with 20% APR and you have like a $500 balance, you make a minimum payment, over time, that shit gonna start to build up. Excuse my language. It's gonna start to build up, bro. And you do not want to do that. And that's my second point, actually. So after you learn how to avoid the trap, the second point is that you need to understand that if you are in the trap or if you are just trying to understand why you need to avoid the trap, is because the interest aspect of it is what truly gets you. So let's assume, right? Let's say credit cards had no interest, right? Would they really be that bad of a thing to use? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like if you can use a credit card and just, not have to really pay anything back beyond what you used, then that's almost a good deal. I damn near would use that shit. That's free money. But that's not how credit cards work. Like I just said, most credit cards have like a 20% APR. You know what I mean? So you're going to be paying so much interest when you start using credit cards that the interest grows faster than most people are paying. Like the example I just provided, if you only make the minimum payment every month, you're literally going to start going backward instead of forward. But the problem is that most people are only concerned with making a minimum payment because they're not trying to pay off their credit card debt. Most people are not thinking, I have credit card debt. I should probably try to pay it off as quickly as possible. I should probably allocate as much of my resources as I can to paying the debt off. Because sadly, and I know I'm talking really fast, I have to stop talking so fast. This is a problem that I have. I'm for the rest of this video, y'all, I'm gonna purposely talk slow. Okay. So this is the problem. Most young people, in my opinion, almost don't even think paying off their debt is worth doing. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you ask the average young person, which I have not done this, so I can't say for sure, but I'm willing to bet most young people think about their debt as something that's beyond them. You know, they see their credit card debt or their student loan debt or whatever type of debt they have, buy now, pay later, whatever. And they look at how much money they get paid on a weekly basis, whatever, bi-monthly, and they think, why would I spend over, like, I guess, let's just say 30% of my income to these credit card companies, to these student loan companies? You know, a lot of people aren't even paying on their student loans because of that. They don't see a reason why they should. So, you know, I think on top of the whole mentality around the debt and how most people don't even take their debt serious, the interest part of it is attacking you silently while you're not even really caring. That's the point I'm trying to make. You're over here just not caring. You want to pay the bare minimum so you can use your income to do whatever else it is that you want to do. And if we're being honest, most people are trying to use their income to do things like have fun. Like, that's what most people will spend their disposable income on, is fun things, going out, buying stuff, etc. Right? So most people, most young men are not too concerned with paying off as much of their debt as they possibly can because they would rather do other things with the money, which I understand. But if you want to get out of debt, you're going to have to do something different at some point, right? So the third point, in relation to how the trap and the interest gets you, is that, or I guess the minimum payment in relation to the interest, is the fake progress. So you might think, you know, I guess this is a bit of a nuanced point, but let's assume you're somebody who was like, as long as I make the minimum payments on my debt every month, then I'm good, right? You might recognize that you don't want to be in debt. You might be like, I got to do something about this, but you're still only making the minimum payment. As a result, if you're only making the minimum payment, like I said, for like 5 times already, you're not really going to be making any progress in terms of paying off your credit card debt. The banks are the ones who are profiting here. And the banks want you to make the minimum payment. I don't know if you guys realize this, but when you have a credit card and you like have a statement, they tell you what your minimum payment is for a reason. Like, they calculate what's the longest we can draw out the payments for this person and continue to charge them interest. That's how I look at it. They're basically trying to tell you this is the bare minimum that you can pay and not, you know, go into delinquency, but we're still going to allow you to string out your payments over years, basically, and stay in debt to us forever, right? And that's the fake progress aspect of it. People are paying minimum payments for years. Like, I've seen stories of people who make minimum payments on credit cards, student loans, mainly those two. And then as a result of them paying the bare minimum, especially for student loans, but we're talking about credit cards, after a while, they end up owing more than they originally did. And you've been making payments the entire time. Like, would that not piss you off? And that's because people don't understand the basic concept of how interest outgrows the principal. They don't teach us this type of stuff in school. And again, when you're living your life and you're getting paid, you're not thinking about paying as much as you can to your debt obligations. You're trying to just survive and use your money to do things that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's the fake progress aspect of it. Fourth point, another bit of a nuanced point, but I think we're talking about young men, right? The manhood and the discipline with money aspect of being in debt in general. But when it comes to credit card debt, this strains your income. It makes it hard for you as a young man to progress in life. Again, I grew up in the hood, I guess you can say. So I wasn't around people that were like truly affluent and had a lot of money. So I seen how, like, if you don't manage your money properly, not only does it affect you, like I said in the beginning of the video, but it also affects the people around you. And if you're a young man, you want to be somebody that can be a provider. You want to be somebody that people want to be around and people want to like gravitate towards. And it's really hard to do that. Again, I'm talking about credit card debt, but if you have debt in general, if you have your income strained by other obligations all of the time, it is going to be very hard for you to ever get to the point where you are that man. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you just have to be a rich guy who has zero debt. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's more from like a perspective of having basic financial literacy and understanding that things like credit card debt and making minimum payments and not taking it serious and not necessarily prioritizing your finances and allowing yourself to fall into the trap and all of these things. These are things that prevent you from becoming just a very successful man in society. Like, I'm not trying to say we all have to be Elon Musk, whatever, whoever you think is the greatest, Michael Jordan, whatever. We just need to learn how to manage our money properly so that we can provide prosperity to those around us without straining our income and leaving everybody in debt. That's basically what I'm trying to reiterate here. So debt holds men back from a lot of things in life. Like I just said, it makes it hard for you to really reach your full potential if you don't have the income or the resources to do so. And it's hard to build a life of prosperity if you have lots of credit card debt in particular. Because again, just like any other form of debt, each time you get paid, you have to pay other people. Like, your net worth is going to be negative as long as you have all of this debt. And I don't want your net worth to be negative, bro. Okay. I said I was going to stop talking fast. I lied. Okay. I lied. Fifth point, I guess to wrap the video up, the way to avoid the trap, right? Like I think y'all pretty much get what I'm about to say here, but you need to just be aware. What did I even write? Pay more than the minimum payment. So if you have credit card debt, pay more than just the minimum payment. Don't just try to bullshit your way out of debt, because that's not going to work. You're going to stay stuck forever. Avoid using credit cards entirely, because if you don't already have credit card debt, let's assume you're like 20 to 19 years old watching this. If you can avoid using them joints entirely, then you don't have to worry about this at all. So avoid using credit cards if possible. And I'm going to finish it off with a little like phrase for y'all, I guess. I don't know what I'll be writing. Build cash, you can build control, and you can build peace for everybody. All right, I'm out.